Somewhere in South Africa, roughly 40,000 years ago, a man held a small bone in his hand. It wasn't a weapon, it wasn't a tool. He threw it. And then he waited. That pause between throwing and knowing may be the oldest ritual in human history. Most people assume gambling is a modern vice, a Vegas thing, a symptom of boredom in a civilization with too much money and too little meaning. That's not what the evidence shows. In 1992, archaeologists excavating the Limpopo Valley discovered small animal bone fragments, smoothed, notched, deliberately marked. They were dice, roughly 40,000 years old. The researchers went quiet for a long time because the implications were enormous. Here is what we know about the human brain 40,000 years ago. It was structurally identical to yours. Same prefrontal cortex, same dopaminergic reward pathways, same capacity for abstract thought. And buried inside all of that, a circuit so ancient it predates humanity itself. The system that responds to uncertainty, not with dread. With excitement. When an outcome is genuinely uncertain, the brain doesn't produce anxiety, it produces something closer to hunger. Neuroscientists call this the anticipatory dopamine response. It doesn't fire when you receive a reward, it fires before in the space between action and outcome. That gap, that is where gambling lives. And it is not a bug in the human system, it is one of its oldest features. Think about what that means for a creature living before agriculture, before written language, before civilization. Every single day was uncertain. Will the hunt succeed? Will the rains come? Will the predator at the tree line move toward camp tonight or away? Uncertainty wasn't recreational, it was the permanent atmosphere of existence. And the brain learned to like it. Those who could stay sharp inside uncertainty, rather than collapsing under it, survived longer. The gamblers in the most primal sense were the survivors. The oldest gambling artifacts we've found are astragali, small heel bones of sheep, goats, and deer, naturally shaped with 4 distinct landing faces. They appear across the ancient world: Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, China, India. Separately, independently. Cultures with zero contact with one another were all throwing the same bones and watching where they landed. When isolated civilizations independently invent the same behavior, it stops being a cultural artifact. It becomes a signal. The ancient Egyptians buried astragali with their dead as early as 3500 BCE alongside weapons and jewelry, objects deemed essential for the afterlife. What does it mean that a gambling tool was considered necessary for eternity? The Greeks had Titch, the Romans had Fortuna, the Norse had Norns weaving fate on a cosmic loom. The Vedic tradition described the universe as a game of dice played between gods. Across every culture, humanity kept arriving at the same metaphor. Existence as wager, life as a bet placed against an indifferent universe. In approximately 1500 BCE, someone in ancient India wrote a poem, the Rig Veda's Gambler's Lament, possibly the oldest written document about addiction in human history. The speaker has lost everything: his wife, his family, his dignity. He addresses the dice directly, not as objects but as living things. He knows they are destroying him. He cannot stop. That document is 3,500 years old, and it describes with terrifying precision what modern neuroscience now calls behavioral addiction, the loop of craving, engagement, loss, shame, and return. Nothing about that loop has changed, not in 3,500 years, not in 40,000. In 2001, researchers at Cambridge made a discovery that reframed everything. Gamblers responded with the same neurological intensity to near misses, outcomes that were almost a win, as they did to actual wins. The brain could not reliably distinguish between almost and yes. It processed near failure as encouragement. A hunter whose spear grazed the deer's flank, that hunter's brain fires as though the hunt succeeded, not to comfort him, to motivate him: you're close, try again, don't stop. That response kept our ancestors hunting, it kept them alive. And now, 40,000 years later, that same response fires when a slot machine shows 2 cherries and a lemon. The mechanism doesn't know the context has changed. It only knows almost keep going. Early gambling was almost never solitary. The oldest games were communal, tied to harvests, seasons, the resolution of disputes, the selection of leaders. In ancient Rome, dice settled legal arguments. In Norse tradition, land and lives were wagered between jarls. Native American cultures held elaborate gambling ceremonies not as vice but as cosmic negotiation. To gamble communally was to acknowledge together that the universe did not operate on fairness. It operated on probability. And they were trying to learn its language. These were people with no calculus, no probability theory, no statistical variance. And yet through millennia of throwing bones and watching outcomes, they intuited something mathematicians wouldn't formally describe until the 17th century. That randomness has patterns, that chance over enough iterations reveals a shape. In 1654, Pascal and Fermat exchanged letters about a gambling dispute. Those letters became the foundation of modern probability theory. Insurance, economics, quantum mechanics, weather forecasting, artificial intelligence. All of it grew from trying to understand a gambling problem. Girolamo Cardano had done it even earlier. In the 1520s, he wrote the first mathematical analysis of gambling odds. He was a compulsive gambler himself. He wrote the book to understand why he kept losing. In trying to understand his own compulsion, he accidentally invented a new field of mathematics. The gambler's obsession, turned inward, became one of the most powerful analytical tools in human history. We still cannot fully explain why the near-miss effect is stronger in humans than in any other animal tested. Some researchers believe it connects to our capacity for narrative. The human brain doesn't just register almost, it constructs a story around it. A story where next time is different. Others believe it connects to our awareness of mortality, that knowing we will die makes every near-miss feel like a rehearsal for the ultimate gamble. The data cannot resolve this. The question sits at the edge of what neuroscience can currently reach. In 1670, Pascal proposed what became known as Pascal's wager. Given the uncertainty of God's existence, the rational choice is to believe. Infinite potential gain, finite potential loss, therefore a wager on belief. A mathematician using gambling logic to address the deepest uncertainty human beings face. Pascal saw no separation between the gambler's problem and the existential one. Both were the same question, scaled differently. What do you do when the outcome is unknown, the stakes are real and you cannot afford to wait? You bet, you throw the bone, you lean into uncertainty and commit anyway. That is the oldest human behavior of all. Not gambling in the narrow sense, but the willingness to act under uncertainty, to commit time, energy, love, faith, ambition to outcomes that cannot be guaranteed. Every relationship is a wager, every child is a wager, every civilization is a wager placed against entropy and time. We built cities, we mapped the genome, we split the atom. And still, at every poker table, in every lottery queue at 7 a.m., the same ancient circuit fires. The same lean forward, the same held breath, the same wait. What we never resolved, not in 40,000 years, is whether that impulse is a weakness. Or whether it is precisely what made us. A species that would not accept the universe's indifference. That kept throwing, kept trying, kept placing itself against outcomes it could not control, could not predict, could not guarantee. A species that faced pure uncertainty and did not retreat. It wagered. And the fact that you are here suggests the bet, at least so far, has held.